Hello. All right. Today we're going to be helping you effectively reframe, recontextualize something that is your life, what you're doing, how you're being, and how you're viewing sort of this process of allocating your time, your energy, your attention, and all of that. So let's get into it. Just going to move myself up there. So BeingOS. So operating system of being. So to get to where we want to get to in terms of an accurate mental model of how these high performers, stress free, sort of people that make things look somewhat effortless, we have to start with where everyone else is at the moment. And so having to doing is something that a lot of people sort of focus on their desires. And so if we start here on the right, so people work back from what they want in the physical world. They'll be like, I want money, I want fame, I want blah, blah, blah. And that's what some people call like extrinsic motivation and stuff like that. So it's wanting something outside of yourself, and even your actions are things you can't control. So with that, people then are permanently unfulfilled. They're completely always stressing because as soon as you complete a desire, it's just the next thing. So they end up having these continual projects where they feel like their future and their present moment is never quite aligned. It's very distorted, and they'll be working in the present moment, never feeling fulfilled because they always have these continual desires, and they feel like they're never doing enough because they never have enough. And this is where a lot of people are at. A lot of people living unfulfilled, purposeless lives, right? So they're going on the hedonic treadmill and they're completely extrinsically motivated, which is never satisfiable. It's insatiable. And so that's having to doing. And if we just go through the flowchart here, so people work back from their desires, they have projects towards a vision or desire. I would say it's more a desire than a vision. And they plan for the future, all in alignment with their desires, and their past is sort of all their actions to this point have been in line with their desires. And this may achieve some sort of like temporary material success, but it never brings you that sense of stress-free, effortless, doing or being, which we're going to get into. So that's where a lot of people are at. And the sort of shift, the main shift is that you want to go from, so effectively there's only the present moment. You can only do one thing in this present moment, but you can be so much more. You can be 1,000 things in this present moment. You can show up with an infinite amount of virtues that can't even be explained, or you can show up as like 1,000 skills that you've accumulated up until this point, or you can show up with a level of like consciousness and awareness and presence that you're really showing up. And that's more effective than anything you think you can do in terms of planning or a task. It's far more important to get this shift that everything that you do is emergent from your being. And so if you cultivate your being first, this doesn't even include having. This is just, what am I now? Am I showing up in a better and better way? Am I leveling up in my being in this thing that is like multi-dimensional, multifaceted in this one present moment? And I can only do one thing right now, but my priority is showing up as a being, as a human being, and doing what's most important now. So you're going from being present moment to most important now, number one thing. You can only do one thing in this present moment. You're present with it, you're mindful with it, you're not getting distracted or lost in other areas. You're just like, this is who I am and who I want to be, and in my effort to become more, I'm going to do that number one thing. And if we then take this a step further, so this would be integrating that like doing and having, particularly having. So you see that your future now, your vision effectively, your idea of the future is no longer about what you're doing. It's not like, oh, in the future I want to be doing XYZ. It's more, in the future I will be the sort of person that is like this, or it has these characteristics or shows up in this way for his family and his friends, etc. So your vision that you're moving towards is all about the present moment. It's all about showing up in the present moment, and your vision, your projects towards your vision effectively are different dimensions of your being and different like ways you're wanting to cultivate yourself. Maybe it's like resilience or competence or like openness and peace of mind and stuff like this. So if you want to sort of show up continually as your best self, and your vision is like, how can I become better, the only practice for becoming is being. And so you continually be, your vision is aligned to becoming your highest self, your better self, your vision of your ideal self, if you will. And so you get to this level of peace where you're showing up and you're in the present moment, you're doing what's most important now, and it's moving you towards a transformed version of yourself. Okay? That's being, doing, having, sort of integrating the vision, but leaning the vision away from desires and completely about yourself, your virtues, your values, and maybe how you want to actually be better, be more. Okay, and so we're going to go into an example. So speaking from my example, as is best to sort of share this wisdom, is to like make it a bit more concrete. And so I think about it in these sort of like me, or who I want to be, or the vision of myself has to be like based in reality, right? So it has to be include the components of what is true, what is real, but it also has to be aspirational. It has to be a lifelong journey. And so these things like an entrepreneur, investor, athlete, yogi, engineer, those are things that are skill sets, they're identities, they're responsibilities that I've taken on in my being, and I want to sort of cultivate as I go forward in life, and will develop over time. You could probably pick for yourself here. So I'd recommend you go through the different categories of things maybe you're already doing, but to sort of get rid of that complexity of everything you're doing. Maybe you're doing 10 things, maybe you're doing an infinite amount of things in your week, your days, your months. Try and put them into larger buckets of being and showing up. So every moment you can say, I'm showing up as an entrepreneur, I'm showing up as an investor, an athlete, a yogi. And even when you're doing something else, maybe like I'm doing software engineering, I'm still showing up as my being. So this collective of responsibilities, identities, things I'm cultivating, and all the associated characteristics of this. And under here, so saying being based in reality. So that's sort of the aspirational identities, lifelong, which will evolve with you and in time. So, and then down here we have the energy, the body, the mind, the awareness. So these are things that are concrete. Like, what do you want your being in terms of how you relate to your body, how your body, functions, how your energy is, how your presence is, how your awareness is, how your mind is being mastered in a certain way. Have you developed this level of self-mastery? Have you developed this level of exuberance and energy and joy and peace in your energy? And have you cultivated this level of mindfulness and awareness that you don't get caught up in the body or mind sort of, noises and messes and all of that? And that should be part of what you want in terms of going after your like self-mastery. That you have to keep it concrete and grounded in reality, as well as these sort of abstract ideals that you're chasing in terms of virtue. And another one I want to mention here is like, so each three of these circles are sort of a cumulative being, something that resonates with me in particular. So the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover is from a book, psychology book. It's sort of based on the archetypal foundations of Carl Jung, and how these are effectively the masculine archetypes and sort of energies, if you will, or even subconscious like programmings that we can tune into and cultivate. And so if you cultivate your being as a sort of king energy, if you will, or a warrior energy, or a magician, some of these may not have like the profound meaning that they do to you. And that's why it's important for you to sort of dig into what your soul is trying to express, like what your being is wanting, what your consciousness is drawn to in terms of its interests and desires. And yeah, I'd recommend you actually read the book. I think it's actually just called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's an amazing book, especially on like masculinity and going from boyhood to manhood and cultivating these different archetypes. And you can sort of feel into these archetypes and be these archetypes and maybe even start to cultivate them once you're aware of them. And it's just by coincidence that all of these have 4 things in them. It could have easily not been the case. And so once you have this being, this like collective vision, which I highly recommend you go through, you pick your duties, the level of like self-mastery you want on these bottom, energy, body, mind, awareness, and even the archetypal. So which ones do you want like most developed? Maybe even read the book if you get a chance. Very small book, take like a few days. And then into your like emergent doing. So what happens when you start really prioritizing your being over all else in terms of your vision and who you want to be? Then your doing is just emergent. So if you think, oh, I live by these virtues now, I live by courage, for example, or curiosity, because they're attributes of these things that I'm being and showing up in as every day, then you notice that your doing just happens. You're solving something big. You end up solving these problems that people have, and you're trying to help these people in like service and in honor of your alignment to these being characteristics. And so your doing is secondary, and you'll start to notice that when you prioritize your being and your vision of who you want to be, that your needs are met. You end up showing up as your best self for everyone else. It's the being priority, but it's actually for everyone's benefit, because once you're not stressing about what you're doing, you're not stressing about what you're having, then you're showing up as the most compassionate version of yourself towards everyone. And you'll start to notice that you become more actualized in these categories here that I've put out, or that you'll put out as a form of reflection. So you end up becoming more of these. You become more competent. You become more sovereign, more individualized, more expressive. And you're becoming more of the person you want to be. And that's what really matters. People get it confused. People are always advertised like all these material things that you can have. But in reality, the true fulfillment, the true peace that comes with life is all about this. It's and if you don't believe me, try it for yourself. I think when you start to if you start to simplify things in your being, you tune out of everything that you think you need to be doing in this present moment, because you only need to be being, and then everything sort of falls into place. I wake up today, I do my meditation, I go to the gym, I start making a YouTube video. Like, those things happen because I'm showing up as like the most, for example, mastered version of my warrior and my entrepreneur and engineering. And I want my energy and my body and mind to have self-mastery over those things. And so I'm prioritizing how I'm showing up. And it is a subtle thing. It's a subtle shift. But once you get that and you're like, oh, wow, there's only one thing I can do right now. But if I am who I want to be and I'm becoming more every day, then the doing happens all on its own. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it today. I hope you really enjoyed that. I hope you read that book. I hope you cultivate these sort of being identities that you wish to explore, and that level of self-mastery that you wish to have in your being, right? And make that shift today, and just let what happens, and you'll start to see miraculous like transformation in your life. And let me know how it goes. Sweet. Peace, guys.